All right, we'll call the special meeting of the Board of Commissioners together 5:30 here on Wednesday, December 18th. We have one agenda item, board to establish the schedule and itinerary for the visits, interviews of the executive director, finalists, and finalize interview questions. Do have a hard break I need to leave at about 6:45, so I have a 7 o'clock appointment that I need to get to. But maybe we can get it all done in time. We'll see what happens. Diane, thank you very much. Put together a packet for each of us. In it is the position description, kind of a summary spreadsheet of all the candidates' background and experience, and then the information each of the finalists submitted is in there. And then at the bottom we've got a set of interview questions, and we've got a kind of a table here for the week of January 13th and January 20th, and we talked about doing interviews and making those, putting those together. So I guess the one thing that I wanted to bring up before we got started is there's, doing a search in the public environment. We have to be as fair and balanced as we can. I talked to Greg Selbo. He wasn't going to be here tonight. But everything on our agenda today is open records. There isn't anything that we can take to executive session. So the packet, the questions, all of that stuff is public information. So there's no reason or any concern that we have to have in terms of trying to beat around the bush, I guess. I don't know how else to say it, but it's all open. So with that, I guess the first thing two things we need to tackle is the schedule and the questions. And so maybe we want to start with the schedule and try and figure out what we're going to do with these candidates. We need to think about the logistics, who's going to meet them at the airport, who's going to tote them around, where are we going to tote them around, when are we going to interview them as a board, and all of that. There was a preliminary draft that was sent out, but I pulled that back so that we could start from scratch. And but if we want to use some of that as a basis, that's certainly available as well. I just don't want, I want the board here to decide what it is that we're going to do. So with that, I'll just kind of open the floor here for inputs and conversation in terms of what we want to do.
Do we have that original schedule available? I don't know if,
I didn't bring it.
I brought it.
Because I think a lot of what was on there, I mean, it was good, so I don't know if we really
Maybe I didn't print it out.
as far as the tours and.
Yeah,
what else
I
is
think
on
we
there.
start with that schedule and see when people can't be at something, and then we adjust it if we need to.
Okay.
One correction, I'm unavailable the 13th, Monday the 13th, until probably 2 o'clock, but then I'm here after that, or unless the lane's late. And then I'm here on the 14th. Oh no, 9 o'clock I do have an appointment, okay.
Okay. So that table
So
looks
if you
right.
follow this,
Pretty close.
Stacy, you have this one? Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is right?
Yeah.
Looks like such a big block.
So on how should I do this? So on the original schedule, tentative schedule, it has, that shouldn't impact you, Stacy, right? Because unless you want to pick somebody up, you can meet them at the airport. You're going to be there.
I could bring them with.
Probably sit next to him on the plane.
So it looks like the first day, the first person would be picking them up, having dinner.
So that
The night
schedule has
before.
a Monday
that seems
Monday
like it
travel
fits.
day for candidate one.
Yeah, it says candidate one arrive, and then dinner, and that's all that's happening on Monday. And then the candidate one would be, the second day would be going around to the park facilities, and then we would do the interview in the afternoon, which should also fit with Stacy's schedule, right?
So, and we want to have a full day on board meeting day? 'Cause the 14th, we have a board meeting.
I think.
Was that plugged in on that one, on the tentative one?
It's not on this tentative one. What's in on the tentative one has, candidate 2 dinner at 6 o'clock. So they can come to the board meeting.
I do have it. I forgot.
So I guess the first question is, is the plan to have dinner, next day tour, interviews, sayonara?
I think the general routine, and thanks to HR for putting this together, was, for each of the candidates, except for our internal, Dave, their day one is a travel day. They'll get here sometime in the afternoon, so we should do something in the evening with them. The next day is their interview all the way through to the end, and then the next day they go home. So that was kind of the routine that was set up. So for each of there were 3 candidates that first week, or were there 4? 1, 2, 3. There were 3 candidates the first week. The first day is a travel day, the second day is the interview, and then the third day is travel home. So candidate 1, and I'm calling them candidate 1 because we don't have anybody plugged in for any of it. So whoever the first one is would travel on Monday, do something Monday night, interview all day Tuesday. Meanwhile, Tuesday, the second candidate would travel in. We had something scheduled that night, but we do have a park board meeting that might be of a conflict. Then Wednesday, they'd interview all day, Thursday go home, and then Thursday, the third candidate would come in. Friday all day, go home Saturday.
Well, and of course, this is all hoping that it all works out for everybody.
Exactly.
Now, the other piece of this is, the person from Bloomington may say, well, I'll fly in that day and I'll leave that day. Or fly in that, could fly in for dinner, stay overnight one night, do the tour, the interview, and still fly home
Yep.
the next night. I mean, it's the further away people that, I think
California's
us
gonna be
trying to
tough.
build
Yep.
this and then making these people fit in it is gonna be a little tougher than,
I would,
think we just
I
say
agree
we're
with Vicki. I
available.
think we need to, just with my experiences with bringing people to campus for a position, they're coming from all over the country. You've got airlines, stuff you have to deal with. You have people's jobs and when they can come and go to deal with. And if we go through all this work of establishing this thing perfectly to where we're all comfortable and we can all come to these different times, and then we try to plug people in and they don't fit, that's going to be frustrating. I think Vicki's got a good point. We say when we are for sure unavailable and kind of let Tara run with it a little bit and try to plug people in best to the schedule as possible, but give us a better idea of what's more realistic. One of the things we do at NDSU too is people usually travel in on Sunday and get in Sunday evening, and then they interview all day on Monday, and then it frees up your Friday, because that gets hard for people. They'd rather go on Sunday and then go into their weekend without starting in but that's just, again,
and I would assume, Stacy, the 12th, you're not around either, so you might as well scribble out that whole day.
but then the next thing we get to is are all 5 of us going to every dinner? Or if 2 or 3 of us is going to the dinner and Sunday is a travel day and 2 or 3 of us meet that person on Sunday for dinner, we don't have to scratch the whole day off just because Stacy can't be there.
I was thinking 2, and then each of us would have 2 dinners, so 2 people with 1 candidate. Because I don't know if it's realistic that all 5 of us are gonna be at every dinner.
Which might be a little overwhelming for a candidate as well.
Right, the 5-on-1.
Yeah.
Well, I think we need to be balanced. So if Stacy and Rusty are going to be the dinner people, then I would think that we'd want to probably be consistent and you do dinners with all 5 candidates, because if you 2 do the first candidate and Joe and I do the second candidate, I don't know. Help us with that one, Diane. Is that?
The original itinerary that you see was based on the fact that the executive search committee would sort of act as a host for the individuals while they're in town. So not that the executive search, the committee would then have any communication with the board regarding what was spoken about while we were picking them up, taking them to dinner, and carting them around, to use your phrase. I'm from an HR standpoint, I'm concerned about not either all of you go to all dinners or none of you go to any dinners, simply because there's going to be conversation during these times, and someone may be talking about the football schedule, and they're an avid Green Bay Packers fan, and you're an avid Vikings fan, and this is just gonna come up in conversation. And you won't mean it to bias your opinion or cloud your judgment, but you know what, if you really hate the Packers, then they just might have a check mark against them because of that. So I'm very hesitant of the board having dinner on a casual basis.
So
I
if the
think the-
dinner was more so to welcome them, I mean, do we maybe not do the dinner? Maybe the next day was for media, and maybe that's a get-together with all of us.
So,
before the
and Dave
holiday.
can help, because he was on the search committee, but we originally talked about having a meet and greet for breakfast. And then as you started looking at, well, we got a guy coming in from California, someone coming in from New Mexico, they're gonna come the day before. So I think that's where it got switched.
Correct, and that's the thing. We, just from a purely logistical standpoint and wanting, you know, to provide the best welcome we can to these people, that's when it did get switched. And we don't have to really do anything. We can still do just that and just provide transportation, or not even do that. It's really up to the prerogative of you guys from the way I see it. The thing that I think Diane brings up a good point, you know, we all want to protect the park district, and so we all want to do things that, you know, if we don't select one candidate over the other, we lessen the opportunity for someone to say, well, I didn't have the same exposure, or I didn't have the same opportunity to visit with so-and-so. And so, but yes, you're absolutely right. That's when that changed.
Yep. So maybe what we could do is be a little flexible on that night before, and I don't know, maybe some of the directors meet with, it's the whole idea was to, and we talked about the search committee doing it because they've seen us, we've interviewed them, they know who we are from the interviews. So that was kind of where we thought, well, the search committee would do this. And it was purely a social, you know, connection. Here you are, thanks for coming to Fargo, here's your schedule tomorrow, any questions? That would be one of those kind of deals. But maybe what we could do is hold off a bit on the night before, and maybe we'd be a little bit more flexible on that, but we still need to get the guts of the day. Each day should be consistent for each of the 5 candidates, and maybe we should focus in on that and then get a little bit fluid. So if one of the candidates is flying in and gets to at 4 o'clock, we'll do something with that candidate, which might be different than the lady who's driving up from Minneapolis. So
The other option, and I'm just throwing it out there, is that the remainder of the search committee, outside of the 2 of you, would go with them to eat each of the times. Because nothing personal against the 2 of you, but as she just said, you're on the board of us that's going to make the final decision, therefore you might get jaded. But I think, you know, if you went that route, then, you know, then that would be, so to speak, unbiased. I don't know, when we bring faculty in for searches, we, as a search committee, go meet with them. When I say search committee, I mean the committee that ultimately is going to make the recommendation for hire, which would be this group. And, you know, we talk about certain things about their, you know, about them that we got to see in their personality and whatever that we wouldn't have if it wasn't for that social context. And I've never felt like anybody had a bias, so to speak. But regardless, I would be comfortable with the remainder of the search committee taking them and then doing all 5 meals as much as that.
Well,
You know.
and since it's none of us,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter who's doing it.
Yeah.
It could be, hey, we need a couple directors for Monday night.
Sure.
And it doesn't even have to be a
Yes.
director. We need a couple of park staff who want to meet with a candidate. And they would be basically their host.
yep,
And
Yeah.
then
that
we're
would break
having
the
because
ice.
the purpose of the dinner has nothing to do with who we're gonna hire or the interview. It's just, hey, welcome to Fargo. What do you want to know about us? And
yeah, and that was
any of our
the original
staff would be
intent.
capable of that.
And I'm speaking for these guys, but that was the intent all along. It was just a social welcome to Fargo. There was no interview per se taking place. I can see where, I have no problem with if Dave and Paul want to lead that, and if Dave can't get there because he's got a kid thing that night, that he asks Brian to fill in, because it is just a social experience.
And can we assume the staff would be willing to do that? I think that's a good angle to go, and we're thinking at least 2 or 3, so it's not too many.
2 or 3, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a reasonable expectation, you know, and I think the more we can plan it out, the better off we are, the more success we're gonna have. And, you know, that was always the intent. Jerry's right on. We didn't intend to, you know, do anything other than to provide a welcoming feeling to these people that are coming in, because another thing we in that group kind of kept, you know, at the forefront of our thinking was these people are interviewing us just as much as we are to them. So we wanted it to be very much a welcoming deal like you guys are describing. And, you know, thanks for coming. We're excited to have you here. We're excited to show you who we are and what we are.
Yep.
So that was always the intent.
Sure.
So, I mean, my question to you, Dave and Paul, would be, do you guys want to take care of being the hosts with the most? And, you know, when we figure out who can come when, you guys coordinate, hey, Paul, does this day work for you? And then maybe one of you, you know, if we can, you always want one of you, so that when they show up, they go, oh yeah, I remember this guy.
Yes.
Yep.
Nice to see you again. Hey, I brought along with me Sean from the Park District. She does this, and she's gonna have dinner with us tonight. What do you think? And then you guys aren't doing that many of them either.
Yeah.
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 And we could certainly reach out to the other Paul on the search committee, but I think it would be, to me, it makes more sense to have staff
Yep.
handle
I
this.
agree. And then the idea the next morning would be somebody you had dinner with them the night before might be there. I'm your buddy while you're here. Any questions you have, kind of thing. And then we're really the interview piece of it, not the tour, not the, does that make
Yep.
sense?
So we got the travel day figured out. Let's talk about the visit, the day long. Now, at the foundation meeting the other day, Jeff Schatz brought up an interesting idea. He talked about the value, you know, one of the things that the search committee talked about was an open community forum. And Schatz said you might want to target that open forum by identifying constituency groups and inviting them to come in, because they already are working with you, so you already got a relationship. He said an open forum is you're not exactly so sure what you're going to get. You might get 2 people, you might get 100. It's not quite as maybe conducive is to having our lead constituent groups come in. So that to me went after he said that, and he said that when he interviewed for superintendent of Fargo schools, he had like a series of 6 of these, one after the other, and that was a lot of his day. I still think for our purposes, the candidate tour of the facilities and meeting with staff, I think that's hugely important. I hope we can keep that in, because that gives the staff an opportunity to interact. But maybe instead of a community open house, we think about inviting some constituencies in and having them meet with the candidates.
And I sat on one of the committees when they were interviewing the time Dr. Brush was hired at the Fargo Public School System as the rep for PTA. And it was a panel of 6 or 8, I don't remember how many, and I was the rep for PTA because they needed someone to represent PTA. We got there, they handed us the list of 6 questions. We each had our question, we answered them, we filled it out, handed it in, left. I have no idea how much they weighted it, but it was productive feedback from user groups that interact with the Fargo Public Schools, and I think that would be, you know, helpful for us to have our user groups and talk to the directors to see who would be the obvious and have them send a representative and just create this panel and give them the questions. We couldn't ask any other question. We couldn't ask follow-up question. These are your questions, that's all you ask, and you write down
Yeah.
your
So all the candidates get the exact same questions.
exactly. That
each
way
time.
it's fair and objective, and, you know, we had an opportunity, it gives the public an opportunity to speak, it gives our users an opportunity to speak and to have some feedback into it so that we see maybe something that they saw that we wouldn't. So that would
And
be
then
my recommendation.
We gather that information comes back to us.
Yep.
Or reinforce what we think, feel, which I think the more input we can get from other sources is just more information we have to help, hopefully, it'll become clear to us.
Well, and
what
it
the right
does,
fit
I think
is.
it does the Park District well too, that we're inclusive,
Mhm.
we're transparent, we're bringing them in and giving them an opportunity to be involved, as opposed to, you know, huddling and closing our doors and.
So the tours, would we have staff give the tours? How would we do that?
That
Could we
makes
have the
sense.
ones that
That
did
makes
the
sense to
dinner,
me.
just stay with that person and drive them to the tours possibly?
If they've got time.
Yeah.
I mean, it's gonna eat up the better part of 2 weeks for somebody.
Well, and I
But
don't
think
know
there'll be
that that
different
needs to
people
be
at
the same
dinners,
person.
or-
You know, if, I mean,
Right.
you could technically have each director take a day or do something like that. Because that person's not, this one, is not, you know, they're not interviewing them.
Diane had a schedule that I saw, I don't have it printed out, but there were stops, or was that from you, Dave? You had,
We worked together on it. Yeah, we had kind of put together, you know, before we just kind of left it to get to this discussion tonight. Basically, it was about a 3 to 3.5 hour schedule where we put together the list of facilities where the majority of our staff are this time of year. We had where we would stop in there for 15 or 20 minutes at each spot. You know, like if it was at VSS, we'd stop down and Brian or Paul or Shannon, whoever, or Bernie who's there, could kind of introduce them to the people that work there, say a little bit about what portion of that park district function is, and then move on to the next spot. So we had kind of, I think there was a roughly 8 or 9 stops, and we can definitely circulate that again if there's interest, and just show what we were angling at that time.
well, there again, the search committee felt it was really important to give these candidates some face time with staff.
So I just want to clarify, so my interaction time with the candidate will be the interview? And that's it?
That's
we're
what I
here-
was thinking, is that doesn't
And
give
that-
us a
do you
lot
think-
of
do you-
time.
You think that's a great idea from an HR perspective, for me to just shoot questions, they answer them, I write them down, and I make a decision?
I think that it is the most objective way to handle it. Now, based on the questions that have been submitted, to sort of sidetrack a bit, I do think that the hour we had originally scheduled is not going to be enough time. I think that for the board to be able to have an effective interview, that's gonna need to be maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours, so that there can actually be some discussion time. There were many questions submitted, so, yeah, I kinda do think that that'll work out.
Well, and I'll throw it back on you and the rest of the commission. If we want to do something different, that's why we're here. If you feel you need more time, let's figure out how we're going to do that.
Well, it's nice to see how people interact.
Yeah, I don't like being, oh, I'm sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I don't like being, you know, okay, so you've had all these social interactions with everybody, it's time to go to the firing squad, and here are the 6 of you sitting right here, and I'm like, okay, and I sit down in my seat, and, you know, and these are the people who are making the decision, and I'm shaking hands with them 10 seconds before I shoot questions at them, and then now their fate is in my hands. I'm a social person. I need to know somebody, and I know that sounds like there's potential bias in there, but I need the human aspect of the process.
So here's a question.
But if
So
it's
they-
the way it is,
they-
it's the way it is.
Let's say they go on a morning tour, and somehow we fit the user group in there somewhere, and they're having lunch. I mean, we could all have lunch with them, as long as the days work for everybody. And then it's a little less formal than a dinner, and if we're all there, then, but we have to figure out what days we're all there, so that first Monday won't work, obviously. But that may be a
I think on the original
way.
schedule, did it have media in the morning, and maybe there's something we would do in the morning?
Yeah, it says
Just
media.
More of a socializing in the
Yep,
morning.
media, tour, lunch, break, nap time apparently, board review, and then community open house. So, I mean, you kinda,
Well, we could do like a meet and greet with the board first thing in the morning, 7:30. Have them come here, give them some coffee, donuts, whatever. All of us are there, we meet the candidates, visit, half hour, whatever, and then open it for media availability, say 8:30. And then at 9 o'clock, they hit the trail and we come back at the end of the day with the more formal interview. Then you've got some social interaction, you got some time to think about it. How's that sound? Is that getting closer?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't want to, I mean, but that's flying in the face of what's being recommended to us from HR, so I guess I'm not trying to cause problems, I'm
No,
just saying if that's, what she's saying, that in that social interaction time, you're going to learn things about those people that might have an influence on your ultimate
well, I
decision.
sure hope I do.
That's where I'm at. I mean,
I think the concern is if we're not all there, and you're maybe there for 4 of the 5, and you go, gosh, I really like that person, but I never saw that person. Isn't that more where we're
well, she
concerned?
just said if I'm a Vikings
You're
fan and he's a
concerned about the
Packers fan.
social piece.
My concern is that if there are conversation, and throughout the course of a conversation, like I said, you find out this person is a Packers fan, and you hate the Packers, that may cloud your judgment. Now, I would like to think
Shame
that
on
we're
me
all
if it
grown-ups,
would.
and that know that that would not happen. But there is unconscious bias that people are not even aware that they have when they're making these decisions. And because this is a public situation, and we want to make sure that everything is kind of on the up and up and everybody knows what's going on, I am hesitant to say that that would be a good idea. I completely understand you're wanting to have some kind of social interaction. You know, it's always wonderful to break the ice and say, hey, hi, how are you? And maybe because I've been in HR for a little while, I've learned how to do it in the first, 30 seconds of the interview. So I am hesitant. I'm not going to tell you no,
Well,
but I am
okay,
hesitant.
so breakfast could be still, I mean, you still could do breakfast or something in the morning. It would just be whatever we ask one person, we're asking this, tell me about yourself. Now, they can tell you whatever they want, but whatever it is, we gotta be consistent, rather than chit-chat.
What if we
I'm also
had-
comfortable with the idea that you could that you could sift through the questions that we have and, because I don't know that we all submitted questions, but I don't think anybody knows what other questions other people submitted. And maybe, if you gave us the question, you just told me you've been in HR long enough that you can get that stuff out of people through your questioning in the first 30 seconds or whatever of that interview process. If you could put questions together for us based off of what was submitted to know that we're going to get everything we need out of the interview process. And no, okay, sorry.
There's two different things. There's the interview, which is very formal. It should not be an interrogation. It should be a conversation.
Sure.
But it is very formal. These are the questions that have been submitted at this time, and I would highly recommend you stick to these questions or whatever is decided upon during the formal interview process.
Right.
I am not expecting during a social interaction that you ask the same questions of everybody. You have to be careful. No, do you have kids? How old are you? Where were your parents from? No protected questions, even during that social time. So I just feel a little hesitant about it, but I'm not going to tell the board what to do.
Those are probably 3 of the 4 questions I would have asked.
Yeah, those are,
So there will be no socializing.
if we have a
Call
2-hour
me
interview,
22 today here in Fargo.
if we have a 2-hour interview, we could have some, I'll call them softball questions, some of the easier, softer questions at the outset that helps get their personality out, you get a feel for who they are, and then we get more into the meat and potato questions. It seems to me that that's that should be a tactic that we, and if we do a 2-hour interview with them, that is a lengthy time.
And I assume there'll be some repeats. I didn't look at the first round of questions, but you're naturally just gonna start, tell us a little bit about yourself and why do you want the position, those types, and I'm sure that's where you started.
I think for me, it'd be important to see when they're out on the tours and going to our facilities or sitting in front of the media, how do they interact, or how do they hold themselves in that arena? Not necessarily what do they say.
How do they talk to
How-
our
how
staff?
are they
How do they
part of
talk
the
to the
group?
public? Yeah.
I was kind of hoping, I think we talked a little bit about committee, is if they went to each department and had 20 minutes with each director, and each director had 2 or 3 questions that they each asked, so that they can kind of get a feel. They're all the same questions. They just get to meet them for about 20 minutes, and we can get their opinion after each department visit.
The other thought that I
I'm
had
comfortable
too
with
is on the tours, we'd have to be consistent on this, but a commissioner or 2 would ride the first 2 stops, and with every candidate, so you'd get a chance, or maybe just go to VSS at 10 o'clock when they're meeting with Brian's group, and just be there to observe how they interact with staff. That was a thought that we talked about in the search committee too. But if I have to do VSS, then I need to do all 5 candidates at VSS, and Joe, you do the North Maintenance, and so on and so forth. But that would give us a chance to see them operate without, and that would be okay, right? We're not talking to them, we're just observing. Or is,
We,
I
When was the
just
last
want
time
to,
you or I just
we
observed
can
Vicky
talk to
anything?
them, we just have to be smart. How's that? Use good judgment, how's that? I kinda like that idea, cause then you get to see them earlier in the day, they see us, they're not. I personally would like to, if we're having a user group meeting, that's a group I'd like to be part of, and not necessarily ask the questions, but have the users doing that and see what their reaction is to some of our users and how they interact with our users. And
I think I would be in favor of that. I think the user group meeting should be hosted by a staff member to keep, just basically to facilitate the meeting.
well, and I would be
think-
hosting it.
I think that would be one group that we let them go on their own. I think that's a place for bias in user groups.
I like Paul's idea, though, of them going and meeting one-on-one with each of the directors and asking them questions about their own area and stuff like that before they come to us, because that's going to help them. It's going to give them time to kind of process some of the actual,
Right.
not stuff they've read on the internet about the Fargo Park District, but this stuff. And I'm interested to hear what type of stuff comes out in their answers in direct relation to our.
Right, and what questions they have.
Right.
They meet Kevin and he
and back
gives them
to,
his spiel and they say, well, what about this? Have you ever tried, just out of curiosity, because
Sure.
sometimes they ask good questions in the,
and back to
that
Dave's
process.
point, they're interviewing us, so that
Exactly.
gives them a chance to see what we've got going on.
So if we do the media in the morning, I'm assuming we can show up, but if we show up for 1, should we make it a point to be there for all of them? Or what if you end up being there for 3 and you can't make the other 2?
It's highly recommended due to the fact that it's hard to have an opinion on 5 if you weren't there for 5.
Right.
So it's highly recommended. I understand that not probably you can. This is gonna be a really crazy 2 weeks, I do admit.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would recommend it.
Paul, is there anything else you want to say before we leave?
No, I just thank you for letting me be on the committee. It was a great experience, and really appreciate it. Great group of people, thoughtful and committed and interested in this, so it was a really great experience. If any more I can do, just let me know.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for all your hard work, Paul. We really appreciate it, sincerely.
All right, so where are we at? I think we seem like we're leaning on the tours, that sounds right. Talked about a meeting with the community group, 2-hour interview with the board. We'll just say 2 hours. If we get done early, that's fine. And then maybe identifying a slot for each of us if we want to go to one of the stops on the tour to see them and interact with staff. Is that kind of where we're at? Or
And then the user group in the old schedule would replace the community.
Right,
interaction
we
at
wouldn't
the
have a
end.
community
Right.
forum.
And maybe we'll have to scale down the tours based on what we're talking right now, because I think we're adding some meat to it, so maybe the tours aren't as lengthy as the original one.
And is that including the meeting with the directors too, or no?
And we're gonna have to fit that in.
I mean,
too.
because
Well, I
at
think
the end of the
that's
day,
part of the
I mean, I like the whole idea of tour and stuff, but I mean, okay, I spend 20 minutes driving to this place and we get out and we look at this building. If you sat with the director that was in charge of that building or these other things, and he pulls out a map and shows you all their different, I mean, you can get a ton of things accomplished and get a
Yeah.
physical sense of all those things sitting in that person's office if they're passionate and it's their area of expertise instead of, I mean, I'm not trying to shoot down,
Well,
maybe
yeah.
going to
Well, you're
certain
doing the
spots
same
might be,
thing. I
but,
mean, you're going to a building to talk with staff, so maybe you do it here and not spend a lot of time driving. I don't know if we have that many unique things that these candidates, you know, a rink or a park
reason-
or, I mean, whatever,
yeah.
I think they.
try to, I'm just saying to try to cut down on,
Yeah.
your- you know, you're trying to find time in the schedule.
Right.
What we were trying to do, I think, was to get a staff an opportunity to see the person
Mhm.
instead of reading about it in an email.
Mhm.
Where are they gonna stay? Are they staying downtown, or are they staying?
We were thinking the Radisson.
Okay.
It's close to downtown, so when they come in, they have the opportunity to walk around downtown and see what's what, if that's part of how they want to view the community, although it is January, so maybe walking isn't such a great idea.
Should be encouraged, though.
That's all y'all know.
Welcome to Fargo.
So I think, I mean, I think another thing we need to do is we need to kind of put it in Tara's hands and let her kind of use this as a rough estimate, but see what she can do as far as, I mean, this is gonna be a jigsaw puzzle plugging,
Well, not just Tara, but I
Oh,
think
sorry.
Diane
Oh,
and
Diane, yeah,
Dave
okay.
they were very helpful when the search committee was pulling this together,
Well,
so.
who would contact the candidates? I'm assuming. it
oh,
would
I'm
be-
sorry, okay, I'm
Yeah,
just used to
I'm
Tara doing
assuming
all
it
of
would
our
be-
travel
I'm assuming it would
arrangements.
be HR would contact
We've
the
actually already
candidates.
reached out to the candidates to let us know whether or not they would be available during that 2-week time period.
Great.
And some of them have responded, and Ellie's actually the one who sent out the communication, so I think a couple of them must have just responded to her and not copied me on the email, so. So we've already reached out and to whether or not they're available during that 2-week period. We haven't gotten down into specifics as to who's coming when yet.
Sure.
Are you not available that whole, like, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of the second week? So it's really 7 days and 5
That morning,
candidates.
that Wednesday morning, I leave at about 6:30 in the morning, and I'm not back until Friday, late afternoon, probably.
So, I mean, there's a good
And I
chance we're
don't,
going
I
into
don't
that
get to
next
pick
week.
that. That's, somebody way above me
Yeah, no,
picked that.
no.
But if we could get candidate 4 and candidate 5 done that Monday and Tuesday
Mhm.
of the second week, everything's gotta just kind of work out perfectly, but
Right.
And I mean, you know,
What-
when we said weren't available, I'm thinking full days at a time. I mean, I'm out from 12 to 2 on Tuesday and Thursday in both those weeks.
Well, and there's really no reason the dinners can't be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of the first week. And then the interviews the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, really, if need be, because we're not doing dinner anyway. And
true enough, except
And-
for
And let's just say, for example, let's say the Bloomington candidate, I mean, maybe they end up being the Friday person, they're flying home the same day. Actually, a number of them might wanna, if they can, logistically get home that same day. So, I think you kinda,
I live in Bloomington.
I mean, I think you try and fill that first week as best you can, and then figure out how you have to do the,
I don't know if our park
The
board
next one.
meeting is flexible. I mean, that's a Tuesday night, that,
but
if we
what do
can move that at all. I mean, whether an interview falls into that same day or not, or
Move it to Monday?
if we're done, but, yeah, just,
Commissioner Grigg, with you traveling back on Monday, would you be available after, say, 3 o'clock on that Monday? to
The
meet
plane
with
is
the candidate?
scheduled to land at 12:21 that day, weather permitting.
So three afterwards should
Oh,
be,
yeah,
okay.
easy.
So, yeah, we could interview Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I mean, if you could, and then
If
Monday,
they
and then
travel
Monday,
Sunday,
Tuesday the next week.
they're traveling Sunday, right? Yeah.
Or they fly in that, yeah.
Yeah.
Or yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the Monday interview would be a little goofy if you're, then when do you do dinner, Sunday night? I guess you
Yeah.
could, but,
We do that all the time. Yeah, you see.
I mean,
So in the spirit of fairness, I mean, does it matter what order you book them in? And I would assume if we would do Dave last, he's probably the most flexible. I don't want to assume that, but he's not traveling, so I don't know if you can
The
do
only
it
reason
before
on
and
the
then-
original tentative schedule, as I did book him last for that particular reason, because he was the most flexible. But if it turns out that because of all the jigsawing that needs to be done, we need to make him candidate 2, then that's just how we.
And I think too that we should put him through the exact same paces that the other candidate, just so it's fair. He knows where the North Shop is, he knows who they are, what they do, but I just think we roll them through just like everybody else.
Yes.
So I just kind of wrote things down. I said, okay, media 8 to 9, tour 9 to noon, lunch noon to 1. I put constituency and board interview 2 hours. So if we did a board interview 3 to 5, the constituency meeting could be somewhere between 1 and 3, and then would we be done at 5, or is there something that's missing?
I think they're gonna be exhausted by then, so.
Good.
It's so long.
A
That's
day
gonna
in the
be a
life of the Park
long,
District.
draining day for someone. A very long draining day.
Or we could do the board interviews first. But maybe it's better that they see everything and we finish with them, because then
I would prefer.
they've
I
learned
think
some things.
If I were interviewing, I'd prefer that I got a gist of what's the scoop and met
Okay.
some of the people. I said, if I were interviewing, I'd prefer to have seen the facilities and met some of the staff before I'm being interviewed.
I think that,
I think it helps me kind of get a grip on
I would agree.
what I'm in for.
I don't know if you were asking more, do we interview them first or the user groups second? And when we do the user groups, can we use any of that information in the interview? Or is that something we would use that information in our selection process?
If you're not going to be part of the user groups?
No.
Correct?
No.
Then you wouldn't have the information to do it. If you're gonna do them back to back, then you wouldn't have the information to be able to include that in your interview process, but it would be part of the selection process.
Does that answer?
So the user
I mean,
groups.
we'll have it, we'll gather it, and I
just
don't know
not-
if there's enough
We
time
just
to
probably
do
wouldn't have
it.
it that quickly,
Right.
is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
If you're gonna interview the user groups from 1 to 3, and then you're gonna talk to them from 3 to 5, I'm not gonna be able to turn it around that fast.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I mean, depending on the user groups, I don't know if it'll be a 2-hour interview.
Probably not.
I would say it's an hour, and
Right.
it's
Couple
no more than
questions.
however many people are on the panel, that's how many questions there are, and you go through and you're done.
Perfect.
And we're
Let's
thinking
move
like-
our interview up to 2 to 4 then, because that'll make my life a lot easier too.
And are we thinking like baseball, softball, hockey, whatever the number is, 3 or 4 different groups?
Or
and
2:30
School
4:30.
system, CVB, chamber, people that I would say, I would ask the directors, like, what do you think, who do you think would have the most, interest in knowing what's going on, and they're community members, so it kind of kills 2 birds with 1 stone.
Yeah.
And then, be thoughtful about it.
Yeah, and I think we could put that list together and one idea, I like that, hearing that, and I'd like to get representatives, this is just my own thought without consulting everybody, but it'd be nice to have, representatives from the athletic, communities that we serve and our business partners and, our other government partners perhaps, cultural and activity, cultural arts and activities partners. And so we can definitely put something together like that and see if you guys like that.
Well, I think Sanford would be probably a good partner, the partners that we have with them.
Yep. I would love to see you guys pull that list together, and you could recruit them too, probably, because since you work with them on a regular basis, would be,
When would you like that list by?
7 o'clock.
Yeah.
6:15 now.
Yeah.
You know, the other part of that is whoever you want to come has to have availability all of those days too. So make sure you make the list bigger, because some of them aren't gonna be able to come to all those either.
Well, and I don't think, when I did it, it wasn't the same, I didn't go to all of them. I went to 2, I think. And someone else, I mean, they just asked for volunteers. This is when they are, and we need someone to fill a slot, and that's
Yeah.
what we did. And I had my question number 2.
Yeah.
I
As long as the
answered most
questions are the
others.
same and they
Right.
provide the feedback, I think it's gonna amount to a small percentage of our total scores for each candidate, but,
Right.
it'll be helpful.
So I don't have a whole lot of input into the groups. I just don't, I'm kind of wondering question-wise, how many questions? Do we leave it up to you guys to develop the questions? Do we have some input in the questions?
I would say we
But-
could go through the questions we have and see if there's any that we could put into that area and let them ask the question and have it come back. And the number of questions is the number of people on the panel. And I would propose no more than 6 to 8 people, and that would be more than enough.
So maybe we should move on to questions, but I just want to go back to the schedule of events. Are we in a good spot there? Do we need to look at it some more?
I think that's about as tight as you can get it until you can figure out how these people what availability they have. Because you might have somebody who says, I can only come for the day, and then you gotta figure out how to do everything you wanna do in one day. I mean, they all have real
I
jobs
think if they
and
really want the
lives.
job, they're gonna
Well,
make sure they're here.
I know, but,
Yeah.
you know, they have real gigs going on too, and
Yeah.
so
Well,
there
and
may be, or somebody might say, you know what, I can't come the night before for dinner, but can I do dinner after the interview? I mean, I think we wanna let you figure out how you can fit everybody in, and then if we have to adapt, we adapt. If we know these are the 6 things we want them to do during their time here,
Mhm.
and then hopefully it fits with,
So if we shorten up that user group meeting, then we could move the interview up to like 2:30 to 4:30? Instead of 3 to 5?
Do we think 3 hours is enough in the morning for the tour? I can't remember what you'd built out.
You know, with hearing some of the information, this is my perspective again, of visiting with the directors, I think, you know, Rusty brings up a good point. They're still gonna get that feeling of staff interaction. We might not be able to hit all the staff that we had talked about initially from our search committee group. But we'll be able to, you know, I think Rusty made a good comment of, within that time, they'll be able to sit with each of us and kind of get an understanding of what we do, and they're, you know, a lot of the people work in this building. And so they'll have an opportunity to meet a lot of the folks that work here just because of proximity. You know, a lot of the team that I work within are not here, but there's a person here as well, so they'll get a little bit of that, and I could, you know, even have a few people come. So my thought is I think that's plenty of time, and we allot the time to the directors to kind of do that meet and greet with them and explain to them what roles we play and answer any questions in the areas that we represent.
Okay.
And we can just make that time be the amount of time we need. I mean, if we run out of time, we cut what we're doing short.
how many different places were they gonna go see originally?
I believe there was like 9 locations, 8 or 9 locations.
So, obviously, this will be one. I just made a short list, but I have 5 on my list. Depot, Valley Senior Services, which I don't know if that's necessary. Courts Plus, Southwest, Rink, so they'd see a rink, which again is pretty small staff, so, and a rink is a rink, kind of. So really Depot, Valley Senior Services, Courts Plus, and one of the shops maybe, or you're gonna get a lot of the operations guys. That's just, and, you know, you guys can figure out how you wanna do it, but.
Yeah, I think we can come up with what that looks like, and I think Brian brings up a good point too, is that can be a flexible portion of the day. So if any other one thing, you know, has to take precedence over the other, we can be real fluid with that section.
I'd like them to meet some of the field support staff, so whether that's in the field or whether they come here, I think that's a good idea.
Absolutely.
The other thing too, and have we advertised to anyone that we're doing these tours? I don't want to make it look now that, you know, if some of our staff was excited that they were going to be hosting someone and all of a sudden we're saying, well, that's changed. But have we, I think it was just tentative from
Yeah,
the
I don't
start,
think
wasn't it?
it's
As
gone
far as what
out.
we're doing.
Yeah, I think everybody's, at least the folks that I work with, I have been very forthcoming with, you know, these are just things we're talking about and nothing has been decided as of yet.
Okay, perfect.
So, in the interest of time, do you, if the commissioners are okay with these pieces to the thing, should we give it back to, and since Dave was the only one left on the search committee, we'll give it back to you, and you can work with Diane and Tara, and then the rest of the director staff, and just kind of flesh this out and kind of make it whole, and then just share it out with us. And I suspect we're gonna have to have another meeting. Now, you're gonna be gone, but maybe we could have you call in that week of the 6th.
Yep.
So we'll finalize the schedules, we'll look at everybody who's coming in on Monday, who's coming in on Tuesday, and all that stuff. We need to finalize our questions. We'll need to finalize questions we're gonna give the constituency group. And then we need to probably come up with some short survey instrument to get the feedback. So we could get a survey instrument for the staff, or they could just say, yeah, I like Joe, I didn't like Sam, whatever. And then have a few questions so that we can get that feedback in a logical format. Does that make sense?
As long as Dave is willing to do that.
Everything
Yes,
else
I
going
definitely am.
on? There's no grass to mow, so we got some free time.
No,
Yeah.
let's hope there's no shovel.
It's not gonna snow for
shoveling
a
going.
week or so.
Right.
So we good with that? Or do we wanna?
Yeah,
Okay.
I like that.
Just one more reminder is that you wanted this up on the website so that it would public information about where and what's going on. So that would be something else as soon as we can get that on the marketing side of it, to put it up and make those announcements. And if we are doing the media invite, to be able to get that set up as far as a time frame too. And then just another piece to think about is, after this is all done, at some point we should discuss how this announcement will be made. You know, is it a press release? Is it an event? You know, and how does it get announced to the staff versus how does it get announced to the public?
Okay.
And that's not for tonight, but just for future.
Well, and on that front, Terry, you might as well start finding a date and time where we can meet after the 5th candidate. Because we're gonna have to come back together and then go into executive session and decide. Maybe if you have any input on how we should proceed, I wasn't here when the last director was hired, and how was that handled?
I would have to do some checking back too, just to see, you know, what we did, what worked, what if there's something we do different. And I'm sure that there'll be others on, you know, that would have some ideas.
Could you take the lead on doing that research, Carolyn, and just
Oh, yeah,
feed it out to
definitely.
us? That would be good.
Carolyn, what are your thoughts on the media? You know, from, I don't know if 8 to 9 is too long, and I guess I have a concern with media. You invite them, and I don't know who all shows up, and I know you can't make someone come. You
And
know,
that's the thing.
to 5 different ones, so you might have DOI at one and Fox at the other, and I think it's more of just an invitation, and then, I don't know if it's just open to them, or if there's a script, or if we have a plan on how we're gonna handle the media.
And I think that's the other question, is what do you want to get out of that? And who is actually evaluating it? Did you want the thoughts from the media people, or do you want somebody there watching this interaction, because it's really kind of a pseudo press release or, you know, news conference kind of thing? And so what do you want to get out of it? It's kind of like, too, when you sit in front of the forum board and they ask you questions. Is that the kind of situation you want to panel and get their feedback on how things happen? And we haven't done this before, so it would be something new for everybody.
Part of my thought process on that is to get them an opportunity, get the public an opportunity to see the candidates. So, you know, I might be watching the news, and if, you know, they're interviewing one of the candidates, so, oh, okay, I saw that guy. So we're trying to provide some exposure to the community. And then the other piece is to see how they interact with the media. You know, if I know that we got that interview on Monday the 13th, I'll be trolling personally. I'll be looking at the news, see what what they do, and we could even have marketing pull the clips and send them to us so we can look and see, you know, how did candidate one answer the questions? Did he look comfortable? Did she look comfortable? Those kind of things.
And you're still going to be at the mercy of what's happening that day in the community.
Right.
You know, we may not be the top news story of the day.
Might be a blizzard.
Mm-hmm.
Right, there could be no one here.
And that's another part of it. I don't know if we can ask and guarantee in any way, shape, or form that they would have staff here.
So we could do one of two ways. We could have a media availability, and I wasn't thinking a whole hour, I was thinking like a half hour, just, or the other thing we could do is send the media the schedule and invite them to stop at any of the tour stops, and if they show up at VSS and they want to do an interview, we make sure they get an interview, and then they've got video to shoot, because that would be the other thing that would be good for the TV guys, is if they're at one of our locations, they at least have something for video to shoot.
I just don't want to start the day awkward, and I don't know, and maybe you can vet that out some more. I just don't know how that'll go. And maybe if they're available throughout the day, whenever, and we're not plugging them into an 8 to 8:30, depending on what else is going on. But I like, you know, the media exposure, and maybe it's more so throughout the day whenever they can catch them. I don't know how we handle that. I think we have time to figure it out.
Yeah, we can do, again, a little bit more research to see what others have done. If there's some media contacts that we have that would give us some feedback as to what their interest would be and how we could make it newsworthy.
Okay, so schedules, got a little bit of work to do. We'll come back that week of the 6th. That's another meeting you might as well get set up, Tara. That week of the January 6th. Questions? We want to go to the questions.
Yeah.
Joe?
I'm only here Monday night the 6th. I guess I didn't speak up and say that exactly. But I mean, I'm here all day on the 6th, I guess, if that makes sense.
But then gone the rest of the
I
week?
fly out Tuesday morning.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
early Tuesday morning until Saturday night. And then we start interviews on Monday, right? Or Sunday, Monday, or whatever, right?
Looks like we'll be meeting on the 6th. Well, you could call in from wherever warm you're going to be.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm just
If
saying I'm
if
not
it-
here. I'm more than happy to be via phone, if that works.
Okay.
Palm Springs, yeah.
Oh, lucky.
Well,
Maybe we should have the meeting there.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, in interest of time, I have not looked through all these. I'm assuming that these are the questions that were compiled compiled from us, our input.
These are questions that were only provided by the commissioners. After reviewing the questions, some of them appeared to be a bit duplicate, and there were particular themes, so I put them together as themes. Put all the budgeting questions together, staffing questions, et cetera. So.
Yeah, I like how you did that, Diane. That made sense.
I mean, I guess my thought is, if we're meeting on the 6th, look at these, which ones are important, because we're not gonna get through 21 questions with somebody. Is that what's on here? Some insane number. You know, which ones do we really want, which ones are important, and decide, and then, you know, which ones do we each wanna ask?
And I would lean on you a little bit too, because these are just our questions. They're probably not great questions. There's probably ones that you would add to the list too. And I think just because we submitted these, it doesn't mean that
Right.
all
They're right or
23 of them
wrong. Yeah.
I think
are what we need
you
to
could
ask.
edit and put them into normal, or into a logical.
that's what I was trying to say before, is
Yeah.
you're the expert
Or
now. Take this
suggest.
stuff and in the spirit of what you can tell was wanted to get out of the candidates in here, pare it down to a list that everybody will most likely be comfortable with. I think.
And honestly, this is my dilemma. I know it's a public meeting, but if we go through all these questions, it's public record. And basically, we're saying it's going to be an open book interview. These are the questions we're going to ask you. So I don't know how we avoid that, you know, if we're not
I don't
talking
think
about
we
tonight.
need to-
And if you have the questions, you know, that's.
How you avoid candidates getting the questions prior to the interview?
Well, I mean, if we go through it, it's public record. If we're gonna go through these and say what the questions are, then there's really no surprise in the interview that everyone's gonna know what the questions are.
Well, some of these questions are pretty complex, so it might not be a bad idea to give somebody a little bit of a heads up, just so that they can be fully prepared. However, the questions don't necessarily have to be provided to the commissioners prior to the interview. I can compile them before that.
I can go either way on,
But you have to be okay with what I'm telling you need to ask them.
Right.
And by getting these questions, I now have an idea of the areas that I believe the commissioners feel are important. But I can certainly pare the questions down and kind of finesse them, certainly.
Yeah.
What's a realistic number? Isn't it 10?
You know, it's hard to say that, you know, this is the number of questions that you need to ask because it's the information that you're getting out of them.
Sure.
And if it's a good conversation, then, you know, 3 questions can be enough. If it's somebody who has a difficult time coming up with answers and is very stilted, you could ask them 30 and you still wouldn't get what you needed out of them. So it really depends on each conversation.
we scheduled an hour for the first 10 candidates, and I think maybe 45 minutes was the longest we went. They were concise in their answers. There wasn't any, can he stop talking now so we can ask him? There wasn't any of that.
Great, no.
And did you guys have, was it 10 questions? Did you each have 2, 10, 12?
I don't know if I have my questions
I have mine
here.
here. Well, there were, some of them had many parts to them. There were 8 total questions, but 1, 2, 3, 4 of them had parts within the questions.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I would say 14 total. I mean, if you went question by question.
And we'll rely on your expertise too to make them open-ended questions and get it so we can hopefully get them to open up and we're not trying to drag stuff out of them.
And what I was going to mention is I can go either way. I don't have a problem getting the questions to the candidates ahead of time so they can prepare their answers. You know, I don't know if there's a lot of value in, you know, kind of a gotcha question that, you know, at the spur of the moment they're going to, you know, not be able to answer well. Or maybe we do a mix. Maybe we send some of the more complex ones that require some thoughtful thinking and they can have those, and then we have another set of questions that we maintain and hold until the day of the interview. So.
Or maybe we could just let the candidates know that they will be facing questions dealing with their previous experience, budgeting,
Yep.
I thought that,
facilities management, so they have the topics, not necessarily the questions.
Right.
Right, I agree with that.
like what you've done in your categories, just say whatever
Yeah.
the 6A categories are. I like that.
And really, that's a pretty common staple. If they know what they're doing, they'll know that the line of questions they're going to get. Leadership, budget, management. All right, so Diana's going to go back and HR-ize these questions. Anything else? Have we covered all the bases, or we missed?
Bless you.
Thank you.
So we've talked about who's going to handle the candidates from the time they get here until they leave. That's going to be staff. The logistics of getting them around. We talked about the schedule. We're going to see a tightening up of that. You'll send it out to us, and we can finalize that. The one thing we probably need to finalize related to that schedule is if I'm going to go meet every candidate at VSS and Joe's going to meet every candidate at the North Shop, we will need to finalize that so we have a consistency built in. Somebody's got to do lunch with these guys. And then we need to figure out the media and the questions. We missing anything? Do we have it all? Is there any?
There's lunch on their own, okay? I mean, I don't know if they need to be with us the entire day.
You know,
Pardon
they
me?
might want a break, yes,
Yeah.
especially if we're moving our interview
Especially
time earlier into
check
the
mail too, email, you know, they got a
Yeah.
job
Or they
at
might
home.
wanna drive it on town themselves. Say, well, they
Well,
took us to the
There's
good
not gonna be a
stuff, not
lot
the
of
bad
time.
stuff.
We talked about that, and that's the travel day, so if they can get in here, or on the travel day home, if they, like the West Coast guy, he might get a later flight out of Fargo, so he can, that third day, you know, maybe meet with a realtor. We're gonna get him a list of realtors to meet with, or at least we had talked about that, so if they wanna go house hunting, and they can do that. So, we've got some available time built in, and they can. All right.
So does it help you at all, commissioner-wise, if we let you know, like, categories that we'd like to see in the interviews, or seeing this? Have you seen enough input from us, then you can devise the questions from there?
If, the categories are fine, if there are categories other than the ones that we already have.
Right.
Yeah, you could just say, I want to know more about how they paint their house, and I can figure out how to ask them a question, sure.
Because I don't know if everyone submitted questions. I think maybe just one more crack at it if you want to submit anything.
Do we
How they
want,
paint their house is irrelevant to the job, and I'm kind of a side-to-side guy, and if they're a top-to-bottom person, that's gonna make me biased.
But now how they'll paint a pool, or the color of the stripe at a certain building, might be different. Already done.
Also, Commissioner Rosted, I don't know if it's necessary that the commissioners meet the candidate at the same facility if you're gonna do the tour. So if you could meet them at VSS on Monday, but on the Wednesday you can't get you're unavailable, but you can meet them when they're supposed to be at the North Shop, I think that would be fine, as long as you make sure that you meet them on the tour at
Okay.
some point. That may give the commissioners a little bit more flexibility with your timing.
there might be, just briefing through this, some leadership and strategic direction kinds of questions. I don't, maybe they're in there, they're boilerplated under something else.
Well, we
I think, can we just look at these
Yeah.
and say maybe by the end of the week, if we have anything else we'd like to add, we can get that to you.
We'll get them to you on next Wednesday.
I won't.
All right, anything else? Very productive?
Yeah.
Got through in an hour and 5 minutes. Everyone, thanks for
You have
coming.
time to spare?
Meeting adjourned.